right? Because currently all of the tiles are just being rendered as very large pixels, and that doesn't really look like tiles yet. There's no visual cues to let you know, hey, I'm dealing with tiles, not pixels. In order to do that, if we go down to, we're just gonna scroll down to where the formulas for mapping to the on-screen viewport is. So I'll hopefully recognize it when I see it. And it didn't. Ah, okay, so right here. And I can see like the formula calculations I did. I think this was in the first video. We need to do something here so that when we set these pixel colors, if the pixel is on the border of the tile, it will set down some type of checkered pattern. I'm thinking like a checkered black and white pattern that's only 1 pixel thick, and it goes around the border of the tile. So that way when you're zooming in and out, there's always a 1 pixel thick border around the tile. Unless you're zoomed in or you're zoomed out so much that each tile is only 1 pixel big, and so there's not enough room to display that pattern. But if there's enough room to display a 1 pixel border of checkered black and white around the tile, I want to draw that somehow. In order to do that, we have to take a look at these formulas and figure out what are the local coordinates of the tile. Because we know, do we even know what tile we're in, right? Because we're mapping from one viewport to another, but we need to figure out, okay, where is the information in these formulas for what tile we're on, and how do we use the information we have to derive what tile we're on, and then the local XY of that tile. The tile will always have an origin of 0, 0 when we're dealing with local coordinates. And then depending on what our current tile exponent in the camera is, that will kind of give us information as to how big, that'll give us information as to the upper bounds of the tile, right? So I believe it was exponent of 9 gave us 512 by 512. Oh wait, actually this might be inverted, right? Because I was talking about the tile camera yesterday. But the way we are rendering this, our tiles will always show up as a power of 2 in terms of how big they are in pixels on the screen. So there may or may not be some exponent calculations in here. It might be simpler than that. It might just be some division, because the exponent stuff, I believe, by the time we get to this do mapping function, that has already been abstracted out of the code, right? The exponent logic was kind of like another layer added on top of this, right? Because we use those exponents to create rectangles that have upper and lower bounds on them. But really, I have no clue what the math for this is, and so I have to think through it. And I said that I was just going to record the entire process without any edits. So even though I have no clue what to do, and I have no clue how long it's going to take me to figure this out, I think that I should keep on trying to figure this out on camera so that I can kind of document the thought process. And I don't know. Don't feel too motivated today. Eventually, that coffee loses its edge, and you gotta stop drinking your coffee and deal with. Well, I have coffee today, but I'm just saying that coffee is a drug, and if you can function well without coffee, do not start coffee. It's sure there are harder drugs, but coffee just gives you the same issues that any other drug will give you. It just isn't as extreme, right? Coffee isn't quite like meth, right? It's not gonna wreck your life if you start drinking it, but it's definitely gonna mess with your dopamine receptors, right? You're gonna get a tolerance to drinking coffee, then you're gonna need to drink coffee just to feel normal, and that's where I am. And sometimes I wonder, hey, when you get a headache from coffee, is it just a headache, or are other bad things happening to your body, right? Because sometimes people will die from just the withdrawals from like harder drugs. It'll just kill them if they go cold turkey. So have you ever wondered, like, when you have that headache from not drinking coffee, is it just a headache, or are there other like parts of your body that are literally taking damage? Right? But they're taking damage, but not an extreme amount of damage to where it kills you like a harder drug. And now I'm ranting again. But the point is I want to document everything I'm doing and how much time it's taking. And technically, this is part of the process. Me getting up, being like, I don't fucking want to do anything today. But I know what needs to be done, and I would like to get to this checkpoint before I have to go do some Mother's Day stuff. So I'm going to start another video. We're going to turn on that timer. We're going to copy all this code over to another file so we have something we can work in and refactor. And I'll probably, usually I would do a lot of this work where when I don't know how to do something math-wise, I would probably get out a pen, a piece of paper, some graph paper, and just try to solve some equations. But you're not going to be able to see that on screen, so I'm going to just try to like draw some ASCII diagrams, which is going to be a little bit slower, but I do want to try to think this out with some diagrams and just start solving some equations until I have derived what the equation is for the local x and y within a tile. We got a lot of good stuff. I actually have this nice little comment here, percentages, dpx, spx, and I noticed that those variables don't actually show up in the code, right? Because I believe I set these two values equal to each other and I started solving the equations. But what's nice is that these percentage formulas, all these variables in the comments have actually been solved, and so I'm fairly confident that these formulas here are correct, because we used these formulas to derive sx and sy. So we might actually be able to take these formulas and use them as part of the key to solving this mapping problem. Also, this mapping problem of getting the local coordinates of the tile will be helpful for you if you want to map a bitmap tile image into that coordinate. I'm probably never going to do that. I want to do some more procedural based tiles, but what we're going to learn with getting these local coordinates to get that black outlining, it'll also be all the math you're going to need for mapping a bitmap onto the tile. So it's going to be very useful. Okay, so I'm going to pause. Well, not pause. I'm going to stop recording because I didn't start my timer. I'm going to get up. I'm going to walk around. Think a little bit. Maybe jump on the trampoline and think about how useful the ASCII diagrams will be. And from there, we'll just get at it. We'll see. I mean, come on. If we crank at this problem all day, eventually we're gonna solve it. You know, it's not like this isn't like unified theory, right? You know, even though I'm kind of like I'm not in a good mood, and it does feel like daunting because I have like no clue where I'm going next. I know that if I just crank at this problem all day, it's eventually going to get solved, okay? And if it doesn't get solved today, keep on cranking at it, it gets solved tomorrow, right? But it'll get solved eventually. You know, worst case scenario, and I mean an extreme case, like for solving problems where I'm not sure where it's gonna go, probably like 1 week. But for a math problem like this, I'm gonna guess a more realistic worst case scenario would be like spending all day on it. And that's just because that's just me not knowing where I'm going, and just I don't really have enough information to know how long it's going to take, because I've kind of done something like this before, but there's enough variation in the way we're doing it this time compared to the ways I've done it before that just make it so I have a lot of uncertainty today. Anyways, I'm gonna get up. I'll be back.